Wind howled through the rigging of the Skylark as Lyra clung to the swaying deck, fingers chalky with fear, salt, and grit. The horizon was a patchwork quilt of clouds and sunlight, stitched together by lofty islands that hovered far above the ever-shifting mist sea. Lyra's heart pounded in time with the creaking planks beneath her boots. Overhead, a storm brewing, lightning flashing across the hulls of distant skyships. "Hold her steady, Tamsin," barked Captain Hallard, clutching the wheel with knuckles white as candle wax. He glanced toward Lyra, a hard glint in his eyes. "If you're coming to chart the edge, cartographer, you'd best learn how to fly before you fall." Lyra raised her chin. "I'll not let a little wind throw me off. I'm here to map what others fear to see. And you need me." Hallard snorted. "Don't get blown away before your compass tells a tale." That compass, a relic nestled in Lyra's coat pocket, colder than the mountain air. It ticked and whirred, its needle ever restless, spinning beyond north or south, east or west. When she'd first held it, the runes had shimmered, whispering of places forgotten and forbidden. A pull, stronger than reason, lured her to the skies. A scream tore through the air. Metal shrieked as the Skylark veered, nearly brushing the jagged roots of a floating isle. Lyra slammed into the rail, stars bursting behind her eyes. Below, clouds roiled, swallowing any who fell. "Trim the mainsail," Tamsin called to the crew, braided hair whipping in the storm. All business, but her voice trembled only slightly. The other hand scrambled, tightening knots, cursing. And then, a flash, something winged and monstrous, soaring from beneath the isle's shadow. "Basilisk!" shouted Nico, the stowaway. His slingshot flashed. The beast's scales glinted emerald, talons carving air, hungry eyes trained on their ship. Lyra fumbled for her compass. The needle spun madly, not toward safety, but deeper, toward the heart of the isle's gloom. Lightning etched across her vision. She felt its message. "The answer you seek is here, but you'll have to risk everything for it." Shouts, the stench of ozone, the snap of sails. Suddenly Hallard was beside her. "I hope you brought more than ink for this journey." Eyes locked, Lyra swallowed hard. "I brought hope." "Let's see if that's enough, cartographer," Hallard muttered, drawing his saber as the basilisk dove with a scream that split the world. Somewhere in the storm, the first page of her destiny fluttered wide open, and Lyra understood. Her journey had more at stake than simply surviving the skies. If the legends were true, even the gods might wake to watch her fall, or rise. A streak of emerald thundered toward the ship, razor talons cleaving the wind. Crew scattered across the deck, some diving for makeshift shields, others frozen in awe and terror. Hinged jaws parted, revealing rows of crystal fangs as the basilisk plummeted. Lyra's instincts screamed at her to flee, but she planted her feet and brandished her compass. The runes flickered as the beast passed overhead, close enough for Lyra to see herself reflected in its golden eyes. "Captain, starboard side," Nico yelled, loosing a stone that bounced harmlessly off the monster's armored scales. Captain Hallard bellowed, "Form up, Tamsin, get the harpoon." Tamsin stumbled to the rail, hands fumbling in slick ropes. "Lyra, if you're going to do something clever, now's the time." Lyra's mind raced. Suddenly, the compass needle jerked, pointing not into the clouds, but toward a spiral of strange glyphs etched on the deck. Even the wood shimmered, pulsing in time with the beast's wing beats. Without thinking, Lyra traced the glyphs. The compass glowed, casting runic patterns into the air. The basilisk hesitated, banking in confusion as its gaze snagged on the symbols. Rain sizzled where the light met its scales. "What did you do?" Nico gawked. "I think," Lyra swallowed, "I'm showing it something older than fear." The basilisk hovered, wings thundering, tension thick as midnight fog. It let out a long, thunderous wail, almost mournful. Then slowly it wheeled away, disappearing behind the floating isle. For a moment, nothing but the beat of rain and relieved laughter. Tamsin's eyes were wide. "How did you learn that magic?" Lyra tucked away her compass. "I didn't. The Isles, it's as if they want me to understand. The runes are like a map spoken in a lost tongue." Hallard sheathed his saber, looking at Lyra with new calculation. "Seems you're more than a map maker, girl. Maybe even more than you know." As the crew fixed the battered sails, Lyra knelt by the glyphs, tracing their glow. She felt something tremble through the wood, as if the Skylark itself approved. Night fell fast, wrapping the Isles in navy velvet. Tamsin leaned over the rail beside Lyra, voice hushed. "Did you hear the beast's cry? It sounded lonely." Maybe it's guarding something here, Lyra whispered. She unclipped the compass, now humming with faint melodic notes. Or maybe it remembers. I think it wanted us to listen. Lightning flashed in the distance, the direction the compass pointed. Somewhere beyond, secrets waited in the dark. Lyra gripped the rail. Tomorrow they'd land. The mysteries of the isle and whatever prophecy the runes foretold beckoned her onward. But she knew she wasn't racing just for knowledge or glory anymore. She was racing destiny itself, and the whole world hung in the balance. Dawn spilled gold across the drifting expanse as the Skylark hovered above the jagged rim of the unnamed isle. The vessel clung to a wisp of cloud, its battered hull creaking, while ropes whined softly in the breeze. Lyra felt every heartbeat echo in her chest as she stepped onto the sky bridge, a swaying plank stretching from ship to floating stone, with nothing but mist and blue eternity yawning below. Nico scampered ahead, his slingshot ready and eyes darting. If that basilisk's around, I'll spot it first. Just don't fall, Tamsin warned, gripping the rope rail with both hands. Hallard brought up the rear, saber drawn, boots heavy and reassuring. The ground of the isle crunched beneath Lyra's boots, moss as thick as a mattress and stones marked with ancient chiselwork. The compass, warm in her palm, pulsed toward a low archway half hidden by vines. Faded runes glimmered in the vine-snarled stone. Lyra paused to trace them, but they shifted, rearranging themselves at her touch. Tamsin knelt beside her. Let's hope you can read those. My best guess is certain death. Lyra grinned, nerves tightening. Maybe. Or maybe, turn the page. New beginnings. She tapped the compass to the runes. The air shimmered, and the archway opened with a rumbling groan. They entered a narrow tunnel, torchlight flickering against the walls. Every step deepened the hush, as if the isle itself held its breath. The air was thick with secrets, a scent of old paper, mineral, and something floral beneath it all. Stay close, Hallard whispered. Shadows twisted ahead and overhead, lush with promise and peril. As they entered a vast cavern, torchlight flickered over frescoes painted in radiant colors. Skyships, beastly guardians, humans kneeling before a towering silhouette crowned with fire. In the center stood a pedestal, and atop it, an object wrapped in tattered cloth. Lyra moved closer, heart racing. The compass vibrated intensely, its needle fixed on the pedestal. She reached out, every eye on her. This is it. She pulled away the cloth. Underneath, a crystal orb pulsed with an ethereal blue, ghostly images swirling inside, storms, isles, faces distort by time. Inscribed around its base was the same rune that had shimmered on her compass. What is it? Nico breathed. Lyra exhaled, feeling the puzzle piece slide into place. A star memory. These orbs are said to hold the history of the Isles, and if the prophecy's true, the first key to what lies beyond. Tamsin placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Then it's yours to carry. Suddenly, the cavern trembled. The frescoes flared, images coming alive, figures turning, pleading, warning. The prophecy unraveled in colors and sound. Beware the forgotten one whose awakening shall sunder the sky. Only the seeker pure of heart can choose the path, salvation or ruin. Lyra stumbled back, breath knocked out. Hallard steadied her. We found a key, girl, but the lock's awake now, too. In the deepening shadows, Lyra pressed the thundering orb to her chest and whispered, Then our real race begins. The cavern's trembling subsided, leaving only the nervous breath of the crew and the low hum of the star memory orb in Lyra's hands. She pressed the orb close, feeling its cool surface thrum with a secret rhythm, like a heartbeat, but older. A faint clang echoed through the passage behind them. Nico spun, eyes wide. Did you hear that? Lyra nodded, swallowing. Something else is here. Or someone. Captain Holler drew his saber, gesturing the crew into a defensive knot. Tamsin lifted her torch, the flickering light dancing ahead as they made their way back toward the archway. Shadows bent and buckled along the walls, until a flash of movement made them all freeze. Then from the gloom, a figure stepped forth. An older woman in a patchwork cloak, face lined like map contours, eyes sharp with calculation. She carried a staff carved with runes and symbols that seemed to flicker in sync with Lyra's star memory. Lyra stepped forward, her voice trembling. Who are you? Call me Morel, the woman intoned, her gaze lingering on the orb, and you carry a burden deeper than your maps can chart, child. Hallard edged forward. You after the orb? Morel shook her head. Not as you expect. There are others far less kind who chase you now, skyfarers from the red sails, and the storm priests of your nightmares. Listen, the orb's memory can be unlocked only by a cartographer's truth, someone who charts not just land, but heart. Lyra forced herself to stand taller. How do I do that? By traveling farther than your fear, by trusting your companions. There are 3 more keys, each on a hidden isle. The prophecy is clear. The wrong hands awaken the forgotten one. The right hands heal. Tamsin stepped in, voice urgent. And what about the basilisk? Why didn't it attack? A mysterious smile flickered on Morel's lips. Not all monsters choose to destroy. Some protect what matters. Remember this. Footsteps echoed nearby. Louder now, a chorus of boots and whispered commands. Morel melted into shadow, voice a last murmur. Go east on the wind's second sigh. Remember, your compass will choose more than your path. A skyfarer's shout rang out, torchlight flaring behind the archway. Time to run, Hallard barked. Lyra clutched the orb. Compass jittering in her grasp, she dashed with her friends toward the exit as red-sailed rivals surged into view, swords drawn, eyes dangerous with greed. Rain pelted the sky bridge as they sprinted for the Skylark. Nico whirled to fire a last stone, knocking a rival's torch aside. They piled onto the deck, Hallard cutting the mooring line with a single swing. Lift her out! Tamsin and the crew scrambled, sails unrolling to meet a screaming gust. The Skylark shot from the isle's edge, wind and rain swirling as Lyra stared back, the orb glowing ever brighter. Somewhere behind, the prophecy's warning rang in her mind. High above the fleeing ship, a silent basilisk circled, its emerald body glimmering, a guardian or a herald of chaos yet to come. The Skylark soared higher, wind singing in the rigging, while flashes of red sails faded into the churning storm behind them. Rivulets raced down Lyra's face as she leaned over the chart table, clutching both the compass and the star memory orb. Every few minutes, the orb pulsed, casting gentle blue constellations over weather-worn maps. Tamsin wiped rain from her brow. Where do we fly now? Lyra studied the compass. The needle spun, then settled, pointing due east, then a twitch, a subtle sidestep, as if it hesitated. Morel's words echoed in her mind, go east on the wind's second sigh. Hallard rumbled, we're hunted. Shouldn't we find somewhere to hide until things cool down? The prophecy won't wait, Lyra replied. Besides, Morel's warning. The compass knows the safest way. It feels alive. Nico crept to the porthole, scanning the boiling clouds. Do we trust a magic needle over a good hiding spot? Lyra gave a tired smile. Right now, it's all we've got. A sudden gust struck. The ship lurched, then steadied, sails filling with a whispering wind. The compass's needle shivered, pointing straight into the cloud bank ahead. Lyra pressed the orb to the compass. The hidden runes shimmered across the charts, forming a web of glowing lines. Tamsin's jaw tightened. That's not on any map. Hallard nodded grimly. Means we're on the right track. Loose the stays. Head full to the wind's second sigh. Lightning played in the mist as the Skylark dove through the clouds, weaving past fragments of glassy islets and flocks of steel-feathered birds. The air turned cold and thin. Breath steamed in the close quarters of the hold. Lyra traced glowing runes, piecing together fragments of prophecy. Isle of Sighs, where memory floats. The phrase burned in her mind. That's where the next key would lie. Nico, wide-eyed, asked, what do you think those red sails want, just the orb? Lyra shook her head. I think they want everything. The orb, the keys, maybe even the sky itself. Tamsin squeezed her hand. But they don't have you, or the crew. Outside, the clouds parted. Suddenly an island emerged, huge, mist-shrouded, lit with a pale blue glow that danced atop still waters. Chimes rang faintly from unseen boughs. Trees bent as if listening for visitors. Hallard's voice trembled with awe. By the stars, I've never seen anything like it. The compass needle quivered, then stilled. Lyra straightened, hope and fear commingling in her chest. We're here, Isle of Sighs. Thunder rumbled behind them. As they prepared to disembark, Tamsin whispered, Lyra, even if you're scared, you always step forward. You're braver than you think. Lyra held the orb tight, and this time, as she led her friends into the blue-lit mist, she believed, at least for a moment, that maybe Tamsin was right. Above, unseen, the basilisk soared in silent orbit, an ominous shadow threading their hope with peril. Fog swallowed the Skylark as the crew descended upon the Isle of Sighs. Every sound seemed muffled, distant, like voices drifting across decades. Lyra's boots sank into sodden moss ringed by luminous, dew-laden grass. The mist glimmered with blue-white motes, making ordinary objects appear ethereal and haunted. Tamsin fell in close step. Stay sharp. Places like this, they trick the eyes. Nico tiptoed at the edge of the group, shaking off what seemed to be whispers curling around his ears. Anyone else hear music? Like lullabies? Lyra nodded, focusing on the compass. Its runes glowed steadily, a little brighter with each step toward the isle's heart. The orb in her hand pulsed in time, casting unearthly sparkles on her fingers. Captain Hallard surveyed the unnatural silence. No sign of the red sails. Maybe we lost them in the storm. But Lyra didn't answer. The further they went, the more memories surfaced. Hers, and it seemed memories that weren't hers at all. Faces, laughter, loss, ancient words drifting just beyond hearing. The path grew narrower, winding through crystalline pools that reflected stars not seen in any sky. They reached a stone circle by a mirror lake. At its center an altar tangled with silver vines. The compass needle juddered. Lyra strode forward. The lake shimmered. Her own reflection turned to that of a much younger girl, clutching not an orb, but a paper map stained with tears. She stared, spellbound. A voice, gentle, sad, rose from the water. "What are you seeking, lost child?" Lyra's throat worked. "I'm here for the key you guard. Please, I need to protect our world. To unlock what is hidden, you must first release what you fear to lose." The voice echoed, and the orb in Lyra's grasp trembled, illuminating tangled memories. Her parents, lost to a sky accident, her yearning to prove herself, and the constant ache of never belonging. Tamsin stepped up, eyes kind but fierce. "You don't have to let go alone. That's why you have us." Emboldened, Lyra set the orb upon the altar. The mist spun into a luminous being, part woman, part starlight, eyes fathomless. She touched Lyra's cheek, flooding her with bittersweet warmth. "You pass, mapmaker. With courage and kinship, the second key is yours." The entity pressed a sapphire droplet into Lyra's hand, a new key, humming with hope. When Lyra turned back, her friends' faces shone with pride, even as tears pricked her eyes. A harsh cry ripped through the tranquility, the shriek of the basilisk, warning of new dangers. Then, from the far side of the isle, the thunder of boots and the red glint of enemy banners broke the spell. Lyra gripped her friend's hands, sapphire key blazing between them. The memory guardian faded. "Hold tight to what matters," her parting words echoed. With heart heavier and stronger, Lyra raced for the Skylark, pursued by foes, but no longer pursued by her own ghosts. Rain pelted the deck as the crew scrambled aboard the Skylark, breathless and wild-eyed. Lyra shoved the sapphire key into a hidden satchel, the orb now lighter in her hands, as if the burden of memory had become a shield. Behind them, the Isle of Sighs slipped into mist, along with the pursuing red sails and the shadowy forms of rival skyfarers. Captain Hallard didn't wait. "Up! All hands! Get us airborne! Nico, check the stern. Make sure we're not followed." The Skylark leapt into the roaring wind. Lyra, shaking but determined, joined Tamsin at the navigation board as stars pricked through clearing clouds. She studied the compass, now with 2 keys pressed tight against its shell. At their touch, new runes shimmered, a map appearing on the fogged glass. 2 more isles, 2 more keys. The finish line was still distant, yet somehow closer than ever. Nico rushed up from the lower decks, voice trembling but proud. "No sign of the red sails, only stormlight. Looks like we've outrun them for now." Lyra cracked a weary smile. "Let's hope our luck doesn't give out." Tamsin leaned in. "What's the next isle?" Lyra's fingers hovered above the compass. A swirl, a shimmer then. The copper reach. Looks like a tangled maze of floating forests and rusted airships. Hallard heard, nodding with relish. "Good. If our rivals follow, that's the kind of place where the hunter can become the hunted." They spent the night in tense quiet, patching sails, tending bruises, trading stories of what they'd seen on the Isle of Sighs. Lyra lingered on deck, eyes tracing constellations she'd never noticed before. Tamsin found her there. "You were brave today. Not just clever brave. I saw the way you faced those old wounds." Lyra's voice was hushed. "I wouldn't have managed if you hadn't stood with me. No map can chart the heart. It's always uncharted." Tamsin smiled, squeezing her shoulder. "Then let's make our own map, together." The next morning, the copper reach rose ahead, a riot of tangled trees twisting between rust-red hulls of ancient skyships, half swallowed by foliage. Lightning flickered deep within the labyrinth. Crows nested in broken crowns, and gold blossoms glimmered on distant branches. Lyra, compass in hand, felt a new certainty. Each isle changed her. Each trial rewrote her sense of what mattered. But there was no time to savor growth. Below, a flash betrayed red sails, cutting through clouds, refusing to give up the chase. Lyra gritted her teeth as skylarks dove into the reach. Let's find the third key before our luck, and the world itself runs out. The copper reach swallowed the skylark in leafy gloom and storm-rusted metal. The sky above flickered with greenish lightning as Lyra led the way, using a patchwork of new runes that traced glimmering lines across the compass. The crew's nerves were frayed, every crack of thunder setting them on edge. Nico, ever nimble, scouted ahead through the maze of tangled skywood and hulls. "Watch your step! These old decks are slipperier than a basilisk's scales." Captain Hallard's voice was gruff but warm. "Keep close, and don't turn your back. Too many places for enemies to hide." Rusty chain bridges and hanging vines marked their circuitous progress. On either side, hollow-eyed statues watched from the mossy ruin of what was once a flourishing sky city. Tamsin brushed a hand over an inscription. "Do these ruins all go back to the time before the Isles floated?" Lyra nodded, lips tight. "The stories say these ships carried the first skyfarers when the land broke apart. Maybe these keys, maybe they're more than just magic. Maybe they're the last memory of who we were." As they pressed deeper, shrieking wind created eerie voices through the hulls, a chorus of warning. Lyra's compass grew hot, pulse quickening. "I think we're close to the key. It wants us to remember, but it's going to make us earn it." A distant crash, the unmistakable clatter of the red-sailed rivals. Nico hissed, "They're right behind us!" The group burst into a clearing where a giant bronze tree rooted itself into the shell of an ancient flagship. At the center, high in copper branches, a feathered relic glowed, the third key. But the climb was dizzying, and shadowy figures now converged on the clearing's edges. Tamsin drew a blade, voice low. "I'll cover you, go!" Lyra gulped, but determination steeled her. She slung the compass over her shoulder and began to climb, hands slipping on wet copper. Hallard and Nico held the approaching skyfarers at bay in a desperate, clangorous defense. Above, storms battered the treetop as Lyra reached the relic, a sun-feathered totem, humming with untold power. She plucked it free. At once, the ancient flagship groaned and the forest itself shuddered, sending figures tumbling back as roots rose and branches wove together, forming a living barrier. She scrambled down. The enemies retreated for now, blocked by the enchanted growth, though she knew the protection wouldn't last. The relic snapped into the compass with a satisfying click, its runes spinning into alignment with the others. Tamsin seized Lyra in a fierce embrace, but Hallard only nodded, eyes trained on the stormy skyline. 3 keys down, 1 left before the prophecy is fulfilled, 1 isle between us and the truth. Lyra glanced at her battered crew, saw in their faces what she finally felt inside, hope burning brighter than the fear. The journey wasn't over, but they were more than a crew, they were kin. But as thunder reverberated and the basilisk's cry echoed once again, Lyra understood. The closer they drew to the last isle and the awakening of the Forgotten One, the more twisted the skies and destinies would become. Copper Reach lay behind them, storm-shadowed and silent, as the battered skylark pressed on toward the world's jagged edge. The map on Lyra's compass gleamed with 3 keys locked into their glowing sockets. Only 1 remained, its rune pulsing a stormy violet. Ominous clouds massed ahead, and the crew's laughter was tinged with exhaustion and dread. Tamsin kept a constant vigil at Lyra's side, her hands steady and voice encouraging. "You're carrying us now, Lyra. You know that, right? We're not here because of magic, but because you keep choosing the right thing, even when it feels impossible." Lyra tried to smile. "I don't know if this is the right thing, Tam. What if we unleash something even worse than the red sails?" "Then we'll face it. As long as we're together, we'll find a way," Tamsin replied, voice warm but unyielding. Through the mists, lights glimmered. A host of floating isles spiraled around the central one, impossible to reach, but for a fractal pathway of shifting stone bridges. Lyra recognized the place from a prophecy engraved in her earliest memory atlas, the Weeping Crown, last refuge of the gods and cradle of the Forgotten One. Captain Hallard called the crew together on deck. "We make for that central isle. No turning back now. If we stop, the prophecy ends in ruin." The sky darkened further as the Skylark skirted howling vortexes and updrafts. From below, the red-sailed ships rallied, dozens strong now, their banners blazing. They rose in pursuit, led by a masked figure, Commander Vale, the infamous sky pirate who'd sworn to take the keys and remake the Isles in his image. "All hands to battle stations," Hollard commanded. Nico clambered up to the crow's nest, sending a rain of stones and warnings down below. Lyra, pressing the 3 keys and the compass together, felt the device thrum with anxious energy. Lightning flickered, and in the sky above, the basilisk circled, its cries wild and urgent, a signal, a portent that the powers now unlocked would not be tamed easily. They reached the first shifting stone bridge. The world trembled, the Isles groaned, runes scrawled across the sky. Lyra heard Morel's old warning ring in her mind. Only truth unlocks the final gate. The Skylark landed with a jarring scrape. Lyra led her companions onto the shifting bridge. Every step made the stone rearrange itself, challenging their balance and courage. Up ahead, a vast gate blocked passage inscribed with runes that only glowed when she pressed her palm to them. "State your greatest fear," the runes commanded, booming in a voice all could hear. Lyra's heart pounded. She spoke aloud, her voice trembling. "I'm afraid I'll fail those I care about. That, even after all this, it won't be enough." The runes shimmered brighter. Tamsin, Hallard, and Nico confessed fears. Loneliness, losing friends, being forgotten. The gate cracked open to reveal a stairway of starlight curling upward into the heart of the Weeping Crown. But the roar of the red sails drew closer. Vale himself landed at the far side, drawing a blade flickering with dark fire. "Give me the keys, Lyra, or I'll see this world broken all over again." Lyra stood tall, all doubt burning away. "You'll have to face all of us, Vale. This world isn't yours to rule, or ruin." Vale smirked. "We'll see." Lightning forked across the sky. The final battle for the fate of the Skybound Isles had begun, and far above, the shivering silhouette of the Forgotten One stirred in the clouds, waiting to see who would seize destiny's crown. The starlit stairs pulsed beneath Lyra's boots as she led her friends into the crown of the world. Every breath shimmered in the air, laced with prophecy and promise. The compass, now inset with 3 keys, vibrated in her palm, the 4th socket glowing, waiting. Above, the Weeping Crown loomed, a cathedral of floating stone, runes swirling like a storm. Beneath that cathedral, Vale and his red-sailed skyfarers clashed with Hallard's crew across the shifting bridge. Sparks flew, blade against blade, stone against steel, but the center of fate lay with Lyra as she scaled the final steps. "Don't stop," Tamsin said, breathless and fierce. "You're almost there." Within the crown's heart, an altar awaited. Hovering above it, encased in pale light, was the last key, a crystal shaped like a spiral, humming with all the world's sorrow and hope. Lyra stepped forward, but a blast of shadow knocked her back. Vale's voice echoed, cold and triumphant, as he emerged from the darkness, cloak billowing, eyes wild. "You can't finish this, Lyra. Your hopes are dust," Vale sneered. "Only power can bind the Isles. Give me the keys and I'll spare your friends." Lyra looked to her crew. Hallard wounded but standing, Nico refusing to yield, Tamsin meeting her gaze with unshaken confidence. She turned back to Vale, voice resolute. "Maybe I can't do it alone, but I never was alone." She pressed the compass to her heart, summoning every lesson learned, fear-faced, kinship forged. This world endures not because of power, but because we choose to hold each other up. The basilisk soared in through a shattered pillar, scattering enemies and guardians alike. Lightning split the sky, and as Val lunged, Tamsin parried his blade while Nico dashed forward, tripping Vale with a well-placed slingstone. Hallard swept forward, pinning Vale to the altar. Lyra seized the crystal key, fitting it into the compass. A wind like eternity shrieked through the crown. The runes exploded with light, casting back shadow and deceit, and for a heartbeat the whole sky seemed to stop. A spectral form coalesced above them, the Forgotten One, a deity half-remembered by all the Isles. Its voice was the wind and the thunder, sorrow and tenderness. "Shall I rend the world or shall I heal it, Seeker?" Lyra's voice was small but certain. "Let it be healed. Let the Isles remember what it is to be together." The compass blazed. The Isles, split by storms and memory, drew closer as blue bridges knit themselves from cloud and starlight. The basilisk circled Lyra once, bowing its massive head in respect before flying free into unbroken sky. Vale screamed as a tide of forgiveness, not punishment, washed over him, stripping the darkness from his eyes. He collapsed undone, and then simply wept. As dawn broke, the Cathedral of the Weeping Crown stood whole, and for the first time in centuries, rays of sunlight linked isle to isle. The prophecy's weight faded. Hollard clapped Lyra on the shoulder, bruised but grinning. "You charted more than a path, Lyra. You charted hope." Tamsin took Lyra's hand. "We were stronger together." Lyra smiled, a tear tracing her cheek. She turned the compass, a memory now, not a command, and whispered, "Let this journey never be forgotten." Above, the skies rang with laughter, healed and wide with possibility. The Skybound Isles had been saved, by those who dared to dream, and by the mapmaker who learned that every heart could be a guiding star.